Hello language learners. In a previous video, we tackled resources and tips for students who are moving to the more intermediate to advanced levels of language learning. Now we're going to take a step way back and look at what someone who's a complete beginner who has not started learning Spanish yet can do to start learning the language and dive in. Hello language lovers and welcome to my channel. My name is Jerry. I'm a senior in college and I'm in love with language learning. I had an incredible study abroad experience last year in Sevilla and made the incredibly easy decision to dive in and learn Spanish all the way. And I've created this YouTube channel to document the process, have fun with the language learning journey, and share the tips and resources and strategies that I'm learning as I do it for anyone else who's interested in language learning. Each week we'll cover the tips, experiences, and the practical stuff that's making the language learning experience fun and effective for me, with the hopes that it will arm you with the tools and knowledge to do the same for yourselves. Now today's video is dedicated to the beginners. Whether you've never uttered a single Spanish phrase in your life, you started studying Spanish at one point and then later dropped it, or maybe you've learned a different language and now you're coming to explore Spanish, we're going to explore some tips and resources and strategies that you can use to get started. We'll go over some of the key areas to focus on as a beginner and look at some concrete resources that you can use right away to start learning. Entonces, vamos al primero. What should I focus on as a Spanish beginner? The great thing about Spanish is that there's an endless array of resources on the web that are just one search away for beginning students. But this can be tough if you don't know what to focus on and either fall into decision paralysis and get overwhelmed by the number of options that you have, or pick resources that are tedious and bore you away before you start having fun with the language process. Learning a language is naturally a long-term process that can take months or even several years depending on the level of fluency you're aiming for and the time you dedicate to it. The key is going to be focusing on what resources and strategies will keep the language learning process fun and engaging enough for me to do it long term. So towards that end, the first tip is somewhat of a pre-prep that you can do before you even dive into language learning and then continue as you go through the process. And that is visualization. Tip number 1, visualize the goal and the process. Visualization is a great mindset related strategy that applies to a lot of short and long-term goals, but I've found it works especially well for language learning. The intention is to be able to close your eyes and imagine a vivid scene that shows you both what you want out of the language learning process, the result, and what it will take for you to get there, the process. In my experience, it's been less important to have a concrete scene when visualizing the process, so you don't have to know the exact plan you'll follow to get there. For example, you don't need to visualize yourself going through this beginner course first, then speaking to this number of people after, and then studying this number of flashcards after that. In my experience, it's been enough to just visualize that there is some long-term process and see yourself committed and going through that long-term process. You're giving that process your time and energy, but it's worth it because it's getting you to a really great place, the result you want. Then there's the result. The result is what you will be able to do and the things that you will unlock when you reach the level of fluency that you want. Here, I've found that it's very nice to have great, vivid visualizations. Maybe you see yourself as a sports announcer, broadcasting comments on the megaphone during a live soccer game, and the Spanish is coming out of you without skipping a beat. Or maybe you see yourself in a bachata class in the Dominican Republic, completely in Spanish, and you're the teacher calling out the steps and the routines, and everyone in the class understands you perfectly well and has no idea that you actually learned Spanish as a foreign language. So, when you find a moment after this video, or even right now, close your eyes and imagine yourself after you've become as fluent as you want in your language. Try to make the image as vivid and specific as you can. What do you see yourself doing? Who are you talking to? Maybe you've moved to Spain, you're out in the supermarket shopping, you strike up a conversation at the checkout counter, and the person is surprised to find out that you're not a native in the town when you tell them. Or what if you're a movie star and you're the lead role in a new Spanish action film that's being filmed in Spain, exclusively in Spanish? You audition, you crush it, you get on set, you're killing it during the filming, and later you're hanging out with your castmates after filming at a tapas bar. And everything throughout that entire process is just seamless Spanish. Visualize and really get lost in these scenes, whatever it is that you imagine. Then take yourself to a different place and think about the process that you took to get there. This is what I like to call the hero's journey. It's typically the cool part of the movie where Batman, for example, is in the underground basement lifting 300-pound blocks, jumping rope with metal chain. There's epic music in the background, and he's just getting ready for that big fight that he knows he's going to have later down the line. So, visualize your hero's journey. Maybe in one scene, you visualize and see yourself writing down every new word you learn in a journal or on your phone. Or, in another scene, you see yourself mouthing words and whispering back the phrases that your favorite character is saying as you get sucked into your favorite Spanish TV series. Maybe you see yourself hanging out with a group of Spanish friends and blanking out on the first few conversations that you have. But as the days pass, you slowly become more comfortable, start to speak a little faster, and start to sound more natural. Okay, now open your eyes. At the end of this process, either now or after you've done it a few times, you'll have an appealing and vivid image of the result that you're looking for out of language learning, which will keep you engaged in the process. And it'll hold you through the long journey and give you something to look forward to. But you'll also have an image of you going through a process to get there. And that will help you understand how the less glamorous things, like studying on a day-to-day basis, actually fit into what you're aiming for. Hand in hand, I think that these two images, kept close to you, will give you an immense amount of energy and focus to stay committed to language learning long enough to reach the level of fluency you're aiming for, and also make the process a lot more fun and enjoyable. Tip number 2. Start speaking right away before studying grammar concepts. At the start of your language learning journey, one of the first things that you should do is to convince yourself that the language you're trying to learn is cool and interesting enough to you for you to actually dedicate all the time that it will take to learn it. Visualization will help in part, but another way to see how cool a language is to you is to speak it. When you're just starting out, you won't have the grammar structures or the vocabulary to build your own sentences, but there is something you can do to start saying phrases on day one. Get out-of-the-box phrases that you can start using right away. This can be you looking up the most common and basic Spanish phrases, or you know the phrases that you say most often and you look up the Spanish version of those. In either case, grab a few phrases that are pre-made, learn what they mean, practice the pronunciation, and then start saying them as much as you can. Maybe instead of saying thank you, you start replacing all of those with gracias. Instead of saying good morning, you greet your family every day with buenos dias. And instead of saying see you tomorrow, you tell your professor hasta mañana. The point is to learn some pre-built phrases, start using them right away, and use them as much as you can. You'll feel great speaking the language, and it will be a small proof to yourself that you can actually learn the language if you keep at it. If you're looking for places to learn out-of-the-box phrases, a quick search should give you a list of sources and articles and videos. One concrete example is the Learn Spanish playlist from the Spanishpod101 YouTube channel. It's a series of videos on different topics that give you pre-built expressions, ranging from introducing yourself and greetings to vocabulary for the kitchen or apologizing, and common things like saying goodbye. They get right to the point and you'll pick up some quick phrases. One video in particular goes through a first pass of some of the most basic phrases that you'll probably use a million times. Tip number 3. Start consuming easy Spanish content. It's important to consume content in Spanish where you understand a good 70 to 80% so that the material is not too frustrating, but there's still new things to learn. This can be difficult when you start because you might have trouble finding content that's both all in Spanish, but also where you understand a good chunk of the material and it goes slowly enough for you. You might instead look for content that's a mixture of English and Spanish at the start. Or you can start watching content that's completely in Spanish audio but has English subtitles to give yourself some comfort and not feel completely lost. Lean on the subtitles to understand what's going on and to start learning some of what the Spanish mean. Over time, try to slowly move away from the subtitles so you're not completely blocking out the Spanish and just reading the English. One of my favorite beginner-friendly Spanish YouTube channels is called Easy Spanish. They have great content where they go all throughout Spain and Latin America to interview people on the streets about food, culture, and life in different countries, and their videos are subtitled in English and also Spanish. You can keep up with what's going on using the subtitles while getting used to listening to the Spanish with the audio, and the topics are also really interesting. Tip Número 4. Sprinkle in grammar concepts as you come across them. Eventually, you're going to start noticing sentence forms or grammar structures while you're learning and saying phrases that repeat themselves over and over again. And you're going to finally become interested enough to learn what these grammar concepts mean for yourselves so you can decode the things that you're learning. This is a good time to start using resources to pick apart different grammar concepts. You can always go through a grammar book and learn concept after concept, but it's not very effective to pile on a bunch of grammar concepts and then not use them. Definitely feel free to learn grammar concepts, but as long as they're fun for you and you're actually using what you learn. And the whole discovery through use and then studying the concepts creates more incentive for you to actually learn what the structures are. Now, one resource you can use to study Spanish grammar concepts is StudySpanish.com. Articles are short, they break down concepts clearly, and they're well organized into small units and sections that make it easy for you to learn new concepts, find what you're looking for, and discover new things. Tip number 5. Join language communities. The last tip is to find other people who also share your passion. It's really cool to meet other people who are also interested in the language that you're interested in, and seeing them making progress will motivate you to continue as well. You may even get to share resources back and forth with each other that helps you both in the language learning process. You can find language communities everywhere, from subscribing to YouTube channels about language learning like mine, going to events, or joining Facebook groups related to languages. One example for Spanish is a Facebook group called Nos Encanta Aprender Español, and it's made up of a group of people who enjoy learning and sharing about Spanish language and culture. People start conversations, make and share resources with each other, and it's a good way to start sprinkling Spanish into your life as you scroll through your feed. I hope you enjoyed the video and learned some new strategies. Start with visualization to motivate yourself for the long process, and then apply some of these other strategies as you find them useful to ultimately dive in, start learning Spanish, have a lot of fun, and join the language learning community. As always, please feel free to make any topic requests, share your favorite languages, learning strategies, or your language progress. I'll be reading them all in the comments and sending responses. Subscribe for more language tips, experiences, and resources, and I'll see you next time. Sending good vibes and energy to you all, and hasta la próxima.